Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down this unfamiliar road. And although this wave is stringing us along, just know you're not alone, 'cause I'm gonna make this place your home. Settle down, it'll all be clear. Don't pay no mind to the demons, they fill you with fear. The trouble, it might drag you down. If you get lost, you can always be found. Just know you're not alone.
That's one way to get your attention. Good morning. One quick reminder to turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. Welcome. I'm Karen Krieger, President, Executive Director of Philanthropy for Pathways Home Health and Hospice. It's absolutely delightful to be here once again, in person, even as we remain vigilant and cautious. Thank you for joining us for the 31st Annual One from the Hearts Award Breakfast. This breakfast has raised over $8 million since we started. The applause is for you because you make it happen with your generosity and your loyal support. You and your generous gifts have supported the exceptional care Pathways has provided to nearly 130,000 families in 5 Bay Area counties for 45 years. Thank you, and thank you again. And you're back here at 7:30 in the morning. Wow. We hope you enjoyed our slideshow with this year's sponsors and supporters and some photos of people that you might recognize. Please do continue to enjoy your breakfast as we move our program along. We've included a menu in your program so you know what you're eating. And don't forget the muffins in the little baskets on the table. As you know, One from the Heart celebrates both those who support hospice, home health, and palliative care, and those who provide that care. Every day, our Pathways caregivers and volunteers, hospice, home health, and palliative care teams bring heartfelt care to Pathways patients and families across our Bay Area. Because you care so deeply, Pathways is able to provide extensive bereavement services, not just to patient families, but to anyone in our community who has suffered the loss of a loved one. All of these are just a fraction of the many things Pathways is able to do because of your generous donations. Every single dollar you give benefits our patients and families. Thank you again for helping us to provide this excellent level of care our community deserves. Pathways' commitment to our patients and our community will not change. Pathways' mission is to provide high quality, patient and family-centered care in the home with kindness and respect, promoting comfort, independence, and dignity to all whom we serve. One special patient and one precious moment at a time. Every penny you contribute serves those very special Pathways patients. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts, all of our hearts. And now, I would like to introduce Rita Williams, our treasured MC of over 2 decades, retired KTVU Channel 2 TV journalist, winner of multiple Emmy, Peabody, and Murrow Awards for outstanding journalism, who will continue our program. But Rita, I'm going to have you wait a moment. Last year, and so I'm cueing our AV guys here. Last year, Rita began by introducing her brand new grandson at the breakfast. She showed us this adorable picture of Turner and Giants gear and with his big sister Brooke. How cute are they? Come on, guys. So this year, I want you to know that I learned from a great mentor and follow her lead to introduce my very first grandchild. Next photo. So this little girl was born 1 week after last year's breakfast, and I was sitting here nervously wondering if my daughter-in-law was going to go into labor while we were at breakfast. So later today, my family gets to celebrate this little girl who stole my heart, because today is Lucy Amelia's first birthday. So thank you, Rita, for showing me how to start a program.
Oh, we're going to hold it this year. There's no stand mic. This is just like working again. I don't know if I like that part or not, but Karen, adorable. Oh, goodness, there's another one up there. I think Lucy Amelia is just adorable. Happy birthday to her. Welcome to the great world of grandparenting. How many of you are grandparents? Whoa. Wow. And if not, maybe this time next year you'll join us as well. But it sure is great. And the circle of life, luckily, just keeps on going. And so you see up there that little scrawny kid that you saw in the picture that Karen showed you, little Turner. This time last year, I didn't tell you about it, but he had RSV as a newborn. And he was very sick and couldn't eat very much for 3 months, and we were very worried. But now he just turned 1. He's walking. He eats everything in sight and as healthy as he can be. And if you, yes, you can tell he's nice and plump now. And then it's much to the delight, I think you have a picture of big sister Brooke, who loves her little brother and gets so excited now that he's walking. She goes running over to him and hugs him, which of course throws him off balance. He goes tumbling down to the floor, starts to cry, she laughs, and we all roll around on the floor and feel pretty good about it. But there's one more slide there, both of them. Well, I'll tell you just a little bit. Several people stopped me this morning and said, "Oh my gosh, you've been here for a long time." I don't know if that's good or bad. And they said, "How many years has it been?" Well, we always kind of go, years, because we were not really sure anymore. But I did a little fact checking as a journalist, and I figured out that these grandbabies' father, our only child and son, was 12 years old when I started emceeing here for Pathways Breakfast. Can you imagine that? That was 24 years ago. So we have gotten to know each other pretty well up here. And I decided this year to try something just a little bit different. We're going to wake up together. So I worked with a cameraman, Belva Davis, if you remember Belva, wonderful journalist, her husband. And he used to have to do mic checks when the president would come to town or any big person in a ballroom. You always have to do a mic check, right, guys? And so Bill would stand up and with his best voice would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ain't it grand to be alive? And everybody would laugh, including usually the president. And so now that I've done the mic check and want to say how lucky we are to be alive, please, if you can, stand up. I'm going to make you work this morning. Now, I don't know how to do this without a stand mic because the mic's going to move up and down with me. But first off, put your arms up. Now I have to hold the mic down with one. Reach for the sky. Now bring your arms down. Now, roll your shoulders all around.
I'll be your model.
Okay, well, I can do it. I got to wake myself up. So now, one more time. Hands up. Reach high. down, roll your shoulders around, and now give yourself a big hug. Now you can sit down. So congratulations, without even realizing it, you just did a squat, you got your circulation going, and you loved yourself. And to me, that's a big reason about why we keep coming here every year for Pathways, and that is to show the love. Love for ourselves, for our families, for our friends, and love for Pathways, for their caregivers, their volunteers, who always envelop us in love and comfort when we need it the most. You know, I felt that love in my family, as I've told you before, when I learned, after several years, I didn't know that Pathways did home health care, and my husband, after his open heart surgery and some other instances, needed some help at home. And we've had a physical therapist come back so many times now and meet. He's like a member of our family, and he is the best. And you know that hospice caregivers for Pathways took care of my mom when she was 95, and they kept her comfortable, and she was still cracking those jokes right to the end. I remember once when she fell, and paramedics had to come to lift her up, and she looked around at these guys and said, "Oh my God, you guys are hunks. I think I'm going to fall tomorrow just so you'll come back and see me again." And when I would see firefighters in Los Altos when I was doing my job, they always said, "Your mom was the best." But I think over the years, as I look over those of you who are brave enough to be back here today, both workers and volunteers and supporters, and you've become part of a Pathways family. And many of you, as you know, are good friends of mine now. And this is how it kind of starts. One breakfast a few years ago, I mentioned that when I retired, I am a real lover of thrillers. And since I never had time to be in a book club, I started a book club. And I picked 15 women that I enjoyed that also liked that genre, and we started a book club. Well, when Pathways Breakfast ended, a woman came up to me and said she loved the same kind of books. Could she join? And I said, sure, I'll take it back to the group, and we voted her in, and she's now, for 3 years now, has been one of our best members. Isn't that a great little story? So you now know why I'm excited today that we have our great speaker, because I am a lover of her books and cannot imagine how she comes up with all these ideas. I'm sure you don't either. And I guess, well, maybe I should be shorter than usual this year. I usually talk about the Giants or some sports. There's nothing to talk about. Sorry, Bob Lurie, they're out. The Warriors aren't doing so well yet, and the 49ers aren't either. So even though we had Ronnie Lott here last year, remember? So we'll just skim over that part. But the only thing I could think of was Halloween. And we are just a few days away from that. And with grandchildren, that's a pretty big time in our lives. So I yesterday asked Pathways, said I would pay for Halloween candy on each of your plates. So these little kisses are a little happy Halloweenster gift from me, and a way to say, again, that we love you for being here. I think we all know that Pathways is different. Recently, a friend in my new HydroFit class, don't all look fit this year, her husband needed hospice, and I told her about Pathways. And I said, you know, it's different. One, it's a nonprofit, and two, it has long-term, very caring people. And that's why I keep coming back here, and I know you do too. We hope that when our time comes, Pathways will be here for us. And to make sure that all of Pathways' work does continue, if you'll check out your programs right now, I don't have one in front of me, but you'll find the names of individuals, corporations, foundations, organizations that have made major financial and volunteer commitments to Pathways and to One from the Heart this morning. And along with each of you, they're the ones that make Pathways work continue and be possible. But I will just shout out to just a couple of people. And I think after all these years, you know the drill. If I call your name, don't stand up, just wave. Real big, though, so we can see you in the room. And the rest of us will hold our applause until the end. So now, please welcome from our breakfast underwriters, El Camino Healthcare District. Folks from there, I've already talked to a couple. El Camino and its board members for El Camino Healthcare District, Julia Miller, Dr. Carol Summersill, and John Zoglin. Ah, there they are, right in front of me. Front row seat, thank you. And from El Camino Hospital, Cheryl Reinking, who is now also the chair of Pathways Board of Directors. Thank you. And she's a sweetheart as well. Also, a special welcome to our other hospital partner, Dignity Health Sequoia Hospital. I visited there this year. Thank you. And this year, we're joined by our management services partners, Common Spirit Health at Home, and led by CEO Dan Dietz. There he is. And Cheryl Haish, Regional Vice President. Cheryl? Hi. A special thanks to our Matching Challenge Grant donors. Their names are all listed in your program, but you'll be hearing a little bit more about them later. I want to also, as always, say a big thanks to our One from the Heart Committee. They work hard throughout the year. They'll start working tomorrow to put this wonderful breakfast together for us. Please wave, all your ladies. This is one time when you can say ladies, because I don't think there are any members that are men. So, ladies, please wave. They may be too tired to wave. The success of this breakfast, of course, depends on their dedication, and that also of our Pathways ambassadors. Now, they host tables and invite friends to enjoy the joy of supporting this organization. And so at most of your tables, there is an ambassador. You may not even realize it. So if you're an ambassador, would you please wave? Now, they really do work hard to bring their friends and to tell them about Pathways. I also want to thank our ambassador program co-chairs, Christine Allo and Suzanne Small. And a reminder that this year, the One from the Heart is celebrating our 31st anniversary. My 24th, remember, but 31st anniversary. Is there anybody here that's been here since the beginning, 31 years ago? Please raise, wow, 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 wow. At least half a dozen? I can't see through some of the lights. They're being shy? Oh, nah, not this group. Because last year, if you remember, you raised your hand, and I think you got a signed helmet from Ronnie Lott. So it helps to raise your hand around here. Again, as Karen told you, let me remind you that from all their hard work and yours, we've raised $8 million for Pathways over those 31 years, and that's pretty amazing. I also want to recognize all the kind and loving and compassionate Pathways volunteers and staff. Now, they're the ones who really keep this going. Can you please raise your hands? They are so important. Let's give them a hand. Now I was supposed to say, please join me in congratulating all of those people with a big round of applause. Now take a look at those beautiful centerpieces on each of your tables. We want to thank Beth Covey from the Sassy Diva for that touch of beautiful fall color. And as always, after the breakfast, we see that those lovely flowers are taken to Pathways patients and their families so that they know that they are not alone. After all, isn't that why we're all here today? As I've already said, that I have many reasons why I always recommend Pathways to people who need a hospice, not only because they're a nonprofit, but because so many of their workers and volunteers are long-time members of the Pathways family. I'm amazed at how long people stay and are content, and that shows when they come into your homes. Few people know that better than Jody Malari, who has been with Pathways since 2009. Jody started as a nurse and now is the Area Director of Clinical Services. Jody oversees hospice services and much more than that. And today, she has graciously agreed at the very last minute to fill in for Mary Pat Larson on your program, who is Pathways Executive Director, who can't be with us now because of a family emergency. So Jody, would you come up and join me? There you are. I guess we're handing off the one.
Thank you.
Hand off.
Hi, and welcome. As mentioned here, I'm Jody Malari. I'm the Area Director for Pathways Hospice, covering all 3 of our branches. Been with Pathways now for 15 years. As also mentioned here, regrettably, Mary Pat Larson, our new Executive Director, was unable to attend. She replaced Andy Robinson, which many of you met last year. And Andy is still part of our Pathways family, but he's expanded his role now to the West region. Our heart and our culture here at Pathways is what sets us apart from other agencies. We have a culture of truly supporting one another, pulling together to accomplish something no matter how big, how small, or how difficult it is. Many people in Pathways will repeat this over and over again. It's difficult, we'll do it, and we'll get it done right. We have a culture of supporting each other in our personal needs as well as our work needs. We are truly like family, and with so much longevity among our employees, up to 30 plus years, we have kind of grown up together. We've watched our children grow, we've watched even our grandchildren grow up. Our employees are what I call heart people. We come together to care for our patients in the last weeks, months, or days of their life. We strive each day to make a real difference. We come to work knowing that we're there to support our patients, our families, and one another. All of that requires a village. And at Pathways, we have a village, a very strong village. Our village, though, no matter how strong, cannot be successful without our village of community supporters like many of you. Our community doctors, our referral sources, our facilities, our SNFs, our local hospital, and all the staff that it takes to run all of those. This village worked very closely together about 6 months ago when we had a patient that was difficult to place, and we could not find a SNF, and the family really was uncomfortable with this patient dying at home. This patient had some really extensive symptoms to manage, and we reached out to our community, to all of our facilities we work with, to the local hospitals, to our doctors, to make this happen. We were able to move that patient into a facility where they were able to die comfortably with all symptoms managed within 6 days. We couldn't have done it without our village. That's just one of the many stories that shows with the help of our community partners, we can truly make a difference for our patients and family. Our awardee this year, Courtney Jaffe, exemplifies our partners. I would like to thank each and every one of you for all you do to contribute to our village. It's been a true pleasure to be part of this Pathways family. Hope to be here many more years, and I'll give it back over to you, Rita, so you can finish with your presentation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jody, and from the front lines, we appreciate that. I think, just think back think that first year after COVID, and I don't know about you, but we were convinced we probably wouldn't make it through. When people start talking about the elderly, and you realize you're elderly. I didn't know that. They said, I gotta have shots, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I can't go out of the house. I never felt old, but during COVID, I felt very old. But we've all learned how to navigate. And do you remember that first year, our breakfast was virtual? How many of you watched our virtual breakfast? I hope some of you did. But that was before any other nonprofits had done virtual breakfast. And so Holly Smith and Karen came to me and said, help, how can we do this? So I wrote scripts and figured something out, and they hired a camera crew. Thank you guys again. And I asked Jessie Cool, my friend, the restaurant owner and super celebrity chef, if she would give us a tour of her garden and talk about serenity and being elders in the community and all. And Jessie and I, as close as we were afraid to see each other face to face. So the camera crew went to her house first, and she baked a frittata, and they brought it to me in my yard later that morning. And we made it look like she was handing it off to me. But we never saw each other. We were too afraid to do that. So we've all had to learn to navigate. And then finally last year, we got together in person. And remember, Ronnie Lott taught us how to get our woo back. You remember that? Get your woo back. Woo, woo, woo. I still remember that. I got my woo this morning. Thank you, Ronnie. But you'll also remember last year, I hope, that Pathways nurse Jennifer Miller brought us to tears, representing Pathways frontline healthcare workers, and how they always put their patients first. When we're scared to go out of the house to see our best friend, they're going into your house with people they don't know until then, and comforting them and their families and their loved ones at the most important time of their lives. And at the same time, trying to keep themselves and their families safe and healthy. I still am amazed at what all they do. But as you know, they don't do it alone. A community partner, somebody, whether it's me suggesting or you, Pathways, or somebody referring officially, a physician, a nurse, a hospital, a nursing home, an assisted living facility, somebody refers the patient to Pathways. And as I learned with my mom, you have a say in that. you can choose the hospice provider that you want to come into your home. And so these are all vital links that connect patients with Pathways. And one of those I want to tell you about is Courtney Jaffe. You already heard her mentioned before by Jody. But Courtney is it's a mouthful. She's an advanced practice provider, and I shortened it to geriatric nurse practitioner with the Stanford Home-Based Senior Care Clinic. Now, how do you put that on a quick little piece of paper? She's actually, what's it called, gerontologist or something. I'm going to let you tell them the official name, but I shortened it at her suggestion to geriatric nurse. In my script, sometimes when I was live, I used to underline names that were difficult or something you didn't think you could pronounce right, and that was one of those, so I changed it. But anyway, it doesn't change the fact that Courtney is very, very special. I think in the little bit that I've gotten to know her that you can already see that she exemplifies the spirit of the many, many unsung community frontline healthcare heroes we have around here, and those who partner with Pathways to deliver care before, during, and throughout the uncertainties and dangers of COVID. And to whatever we're in now, our new normal. I'm not sure yet what that is, but I don't see any masks here today, so I guess we're in our new normal. I got my booster. Hopefully you'll get yours, but only 10% of us have, so who knows what comes next. But Pathways will be in your home regardless. As for Courtney, she is a native Californian, and she always knew she wanted to be a nurse, and hopefully she'll tell you why. And she has earned an impressive array of honors, awards, and postgraduate educational credentials to better serve her patients and families. She also has a lovely husband right there, and her boss and her little baby are at our table. And I also know that Courtney has a little rescue dog, Poppy. You didn't know I knew that, huh? I called Courtney last night, as I like to do, to see if an honoree has something special that they want me to say about them. And she said, quote, "Nurses get used to not being recognized, so we don't expect recognition." Think about that. Some of the most important people in our lives when we are sick aren't used to recognition. That's not the way it should be. So we'll start changing that this morning. Courtney clearly loves her patients, going into their homes. She helps them be the best they can be for as long as they can be, and she refers them to Pathways. She told me some stories. I hope she'll tell you some. She is very humble, and we can never thank her enough for her commitment and caring. And that's why I'm so very honored, Courtney, if you'll come up here to present this year's coveted One from the Heart Award to Courtney Jaffe. Hold it up and let everybody see it. They're going to take your picture.
Thank you.
And I'll put it down for you
Thank you.
because you're going to have to hold the microphone.
And I might pass out, as you
And
know.
I'm here. I told her I'll stay here in case she passes out. I don't know what I can do, but she can tell me what to do, I hope.
Fortunately, Rita, we are in a room full
Well,
of
that's
professionals,
true. That's good. That's
which, whew. So thank you all so much. Sorry.
Just be yourself.
So full disclosure, I did not realize how big this was. So when I was notified about this, I sent the message to my chief, and I told my husband, I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. I think one of the hospice agencies thinks I did a good job. So once I found out that Rita Williams would be emceeing, and then I was like, oh my gosh, Channel 2, are you kidding? This is huge. Okay, so when I talked with Rita last night, we talked a little bit about what I was going to say today, and Rita suggested that I not write out a speech and to just speak from the heart. And I was like, that's a great idea, Rita. And then I went into the house and I told my husband, I was like, I'm writing out a speech because let me tell you, I am no Rita. So bear with me for a few minutes. For me, nursing is not a job or a career or a means to pay bills. It truly is a calling. Rita mentioned earlier that I knew from the time that I was about 6 years old that I would be a nurse. I have 2 older brothers, and one had been diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. And back then, you know, a 6-year-old little girl, you have no idea what that is, but we spent so much time at UCSF undergoing treatments and tests and procedures, and my brother was just worn out all the time. And I used to think, you know, he's always so tired, and he poops a lot, and why is he always in the bathroom, and he's like weak and crying, and why is he so skinny? And you don't realize truly what's going on. But the one thing that stuck out for me was that each time we were at UCSF and he had to stay over, kids weren't allowed to go onto the units, and so there was a nurse that would bring my brother, physically carry him to a window for me to see him. And I knew that I wanted to be that person, that I wanted to be the person who was going to carry somebody to a window so that their family member could see them and have that moment with them. So 20 years later, it was like full circle. I graduated from nursing school and I went to work at UCSF. And I was there for about 9 years, and I went to grad school. And fast forward today, I've been a nurse for 21 years. 13 of those years I've been in advanced practice. Thank you. Which probably dates me a little bit, but I'm not 20 anymore. I started out as a gerontological clinical nurse specialist, and then I was working in a clinic with one geriatrician, and she left, and they were not going to backfill that position. And I was devastated, and then I was angry, and so I went back to school with the support of my wonderful husband, and I became a gerontological nurse practitioner. So today, as a provider, my goal is to give straightforward, compassionate care that is consistent with the goals of care for the people that I work with. Providing primary care at home is a team effort, and I have multiple teams. I have my Stanford team of colleagues, but I also consider myself a part of a greater team. That includes in part the wonderful nurses, doctors, advanced practice providers, home health aides, social workers, and spiritual care practitioners from agencies such as Pathways. I would like to thank my Stanford home-based senior care team, especially my chief, Dr. Mira Sheffrin, my husband, William, who packs my lunch every day so that I can have the energy to actually drive around and see patients because he knows that I will not stop to eat. And I'd like to especially thank the amazing team at Pathways for being willing to work in collaboration to meet the needs of our complex and vulnerable population. I couldn't do what I do each day without the support of this extended team. Thank you.
So while they're taking pictures, I'm going to ask Oscar to cue up the video. Don't play it yet, just cue it up. This is the part of the program where we get to the heart of the matter. You are here to support Pathways. And we have someone very special here to tell you how you can do that this morning. You've seen her before, but she's now coming to you remotely from video. Oscar?
Hi everyone, I'm Annie Chazen. Many of you have seen me at the One from the Heart breakfast in person since I was in middle school. If there's anything we've learned from COVID-19, it's that a little distance can't keep us from supporting each other. I'm joining you from the beautiful campus of Syracuse University. I dedicate this speech to my grandpa, John Mueller. He was one of the most influential people in my life and always challenged me to do my best. Pathways and hospice have always been so important in his life and in the lives of many others. These generous folks have once again challenged us to meet their generosity with a $105,000 challenge grant. Huge thanks to Marion and Raymond Christensen, Ronald and Joyce Castellino, Paula and Bill Power, Pamela and Edward Taft, Kingsley Jack, and Sue and John Diekman. Take home one of the envelopes in your program. You can donate today or use the information in the envelope to give online, via email, or call the foundation office. Helping our courageous caregivers take care of our friends and family is just that easy. All donations will be fully tax deductible under the law, and all gifts up to $105,000 will be doubled if you give between now and November 27th, 2022. Thanks everyone for all your support. We can't do it alone, but we can absolutely do it together. This year, I will be donating in memory of my grandpa. Thank you, stay safe and well.
So I think that's pretty impressive that she has been with us since middle school. And many thanks to Mari and Aaron Chazen for training the next generation and letting them know that what they do makes a difference. As young as Annie was, she still wants to do this in college from Syracuse. So take the envelope home, write your credit card information, put a check in it now, we'll collect it off the tables, and thank you for your many, many years of support, and we'll keep it going for our patients and families. Thank you. And now, Mark Kelsey.
Thank you, Karen. And welcome, and again, thanks to all of you for the wonderful support that you provide Pathways and have provided Pathways over many years. I'm Mark Kelsey. I'm the chair of the foundation board, and it is my honor and pleasure to introduce our speaker today. I've been a huge fan of Lori King's for several years. I've read and enjoyed all of her Mary Russell, Sherlock Holmes series. The first series in that, the first book in that series, The Beekeeper's Apprentice, was chosen as one of the 20th century's best crime novels by the IMBA. Lori has won numerous awards: the Agatha, the Anthony, the Edgar, the Lambda, the Wolf, the McCavity, the Creasy Dagger, and the Romantic Times Career Achievement Award. Lori has an honorary doctorate in theology, and she's a Baker Street irregular, for those of you who are Sherlock Holmes fans. In 2022, Lori was named Grand Master by the Mystery Writers of America. And she's recently co-edited with Lee Child a new handbook from the Mystery Writers of America, How to Write a Mystery. Lori's a world traveler from London to San Francisco and sets her stories in all locations all over the world. I'm delighted that her new book, which is on sale today after the breakfast this morning, her new book, Back to the Garden, begins another series, another mystery series right here in our backyard, the San Francisco Bay Area. Rightly so, because Lori is a third-generation Bay Area native. Lori uses her mysteries to explore the roots of conflict in the Middle East and Afghanistan, to explore the ideas of feminism and early Christianity, patriotism and individual responsibility. And at the same time, her books have a rousing good time. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a rousing welcome to Lori R. King.
I'm convinced that one of the reasons old folks fall down is because of these damn bifocal things. So I don't do stairs when I have my reading glasses, because I figure that you guys really don't need that entertainment to start your morning out. Oh no, we lost our speaker. What happened to her? I knew we lost her. Good morning, and thank you so much for inviting me. This is a real treat. I think when I was asked to do this event, I'm quite sure that the people who were putting it together and who generously invited me had no clue that I actually had experience with hospice myself. But I met hospice through my husband, Noel. Noel was 30 years older than I, and he had a stroke in 2006. Yeah, and the stroke led to a diagnosis of cancer, and the cancer led to surgery, and the surgery led to one of those visits from the doctor that says, yeah, we didn't get it all, but you get to have hospice. And you sort of think, thank you? But in fact, it was such an amazing experience, because, this was one of those things that every time he passed those, they renew after 6 months. And he, being who he was, he just kind of kept renewing because he was having such a good time with his team that he really wasn't ready to leave. And especially, I found that he was really interested in doing the physical therapy when they changed his therapist to this very small little perky pixie of a girl. He was really into physical therapy then. And he would sit out, we lived up on the top of a hill, and I'd look out and he'd be sitting in the driveway in his chair when he knew that she was coming. And we'd have to run out and say, no. The UPS guy comes up here at 50 miles an hour, sweetheart. You really don't want to be here if UPS comes up. So he move him over onto the lawn. But I found that that hospice provided a guide to this absolutely confusing, baffling, and foreign world. And it also meant that, the word hospice from the Latin has to do with a place of rest for the ill or the weary, which by the end of it, we were all fairly weary and rather ill. But also was a place for travelers and pilgrims. And I found it so appropriate for Noel because he spent his life traveling. He was born in what is now Pakistan, was then India, lived in Africa and did his school in England, moved here, had friends in places as wide-ranging from New Guinea to to Thailand, to Africa. And he regarded himself as a pilgrim in the world's religions. That was his field, was the history of religion and specifically Christianity, early Christian history. So he found a home in the hospice program, and we found guides to the challenges. And I was blessed in the whole procedure because he had little pain. His mind was untroubled. It's kind of hard to speak of a absent-minded professor as having a clear mind, but as clear as Noel's mind ever was, it remained clear. And we had help that was both from us and from hospice. And so the circle of Noel's life was allowed to come to a natural conclusion. We were not happy, but we were relieved, and we felt very grateful for the whole hospice program. So like I say, when I was invited here, I'm sure that they had no clue that I had feelings about hospice one way or the other. When Noel died, I was already fairly established as a mystery writer. I think the irony of talking about hospice thing is that I write about death all the time. I mean, it's something I'm really good at death. If you guys want to know all about death and different ways to bring it on, I would ask a mystery writer. But it isn't actually where I started. I mean, I started with God. And when I started doing I went to UCSC, to UC Santa Cruz. I started at West Valley Junior College. Any of you know those? There's Saratoga and Campbell campuses. And was very interested in the idea of how you talked about religion. So I went to UC Santa Cruz, which was fairly new then. This was the 70s. Go Slugs. So it was the hip place to go. And I started doing classes in religious studies, looking at the world's archetypes, the world's mythologies, how we talk about our relationship to, not only the divine, but to each other, and where our role in the world is. And I was fascinated by how we were religious beings in our bones. So when time came to do a master's degree, I went up to the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, which is just above the UC Berkeley campus, Holy Hill they call it. And I did an academic degree, not a degree that you do if you're going into the ministry. I figured one ordained minister in the family was enough. Our kids didn't need two. So I was fascinated by Old Testament. I wanted to look at my own history, as it were, in Old and New Testament. And I studied the way we use stories to talk about important things. And in the Hebrew Bible, you have these subtle effects that you get from words. So that you'll have this poetry that has a phrase, and then you flip the phrase, and a certain verb or a noun will be changed. And there's this odd little meaning that comes out by this subtle shift in words. And I was fascinated how you could do that in a story that's talking about something that may not even be directly where the meaning lies. And the way that the human tales are what you are interested in when talking about the way the universe is put together. The way that the Hebrew Bible is put together with all these bits and pieces of clues and a communal effort was what I was interested in. Now, I stopped after my MA, partly because Noel was already looking at retirement longingly, and partly because we had kids. I had small kids, and I was doing, we had babies, we had a farm that we were running. I was, my husband having been born and raised in India, you didn't trust him with power equipment. So when time came to actually build something, I was the literal homemaker there. All of those sorts of things kind of get in the way of doing a PhD. But all these ideas have a way of sort of lying there beneath the surface and thinking about how you want to go on beyond what you're doing. Because although when you're a mother of young children, it seems endless. You know at the same time that at some point you're going to have to get a real job, right? And I started when my daughter was in, I think, first or second grade, and my son went off to preschool 3 glorious mornings a week. And I sat down and I took a legal pad and a pen, and I wrote the sentence, "I was 15 when I first met Sherlock Holmes. 15 years old with my nose in a book as I walked the Sussex Downs and nearly stepped on him." Well, like all good, strong statements, it raised more questions than it answered. And namely, Sherlock Holmes? Because I didn't know anything about Sherlock Holmes, for heaven's sakes. And I realized that I had to now go out and learn about Sherlock Holmes. So I went out and bought one of those, it's the mass market, the small size paperback. And fortunately, it was 2 volumes. But the type, I came across it the other day, and I can't read it anymore. It's a little tiny type. But I discovered these stories through the eyes of an adult. And I think an awful lot of us who have read Sherlock Holmes as a kid stay on with the idea that these are adventures. But I started reading them as an adult, and I realized that what they were looking at was a man who was so obsessed with the idea of not only evil, but the fact that we could do something about it, that his whole life was dedicated to that. I also found that not only was there this passion in him for his work, but they were funny. I mean, they had these lines in them that made you laugh because they were so utterly unexpected. The room is very smoky, and Watson throws open the windows saying, "I can't breathe in here." And Holmes says, "Well, I find that a concentrated atmosphere helps the mind to concentrate." And you think, what? But I took that as this sort of role model for what I was doing. And I started writing about this young woman who is, in effect, a young female feminist version, therefore vastly superior, right, from the Great Detective. And how she manages not only to meet him, but occasionally get the better of him. Now, I'm not saying that I was working out any feelings of inadequacy myself, but those scenes where she is cleverer than Holmes were deeply satisfying to write. Now, I also found that the, the things that I had done up to that point, a lot of travel, my degree in theology and religious studies, had a weird way of coming out in the books. That, I mean, you're always told to write what you know, right? And I find that I'd much rather write what I would like to know, because then it's more interesting for me as the writer. And I'm not bored, which always shows up in a book in a bad way. But I had this interesting period where I was turning into a writer, which is sort of, you know, from a life of God to a life of crime, right? And finding that my really basically useless degree in religious studies, because, I mean, honestly, what are you going to do with a degree in religious studies except sell shoes? Had a weird way of actually being useful, especially because I had a character who, by odd coincidence, was interested in religious studies. Who'd have thunk it? But also because the way that the Hebrew Bible especially, and even the New Testament, tells stories are very similar in the way that I, as a mystery writer, tell stories, because you put in all these odd little clues, and you have these threads of ideas that run through and illustrate ideas and interests and themes that you can follow through the book and through the entire Old or New Testament. And so this really interesting way of making use of my past, I found a really satisfying way of building a career. The current one, as Mark mentioned, is set in the Bay Area, and you know when I started writing, you make a contract with your publisher, and they usually want to know what you're going to write. So it specifies at this point. It specifies I'm doing a Mary Russell, and it's sort of generally this, and then I'm doing another one that's this. Well, the Russells more or less depend on my being able to travel. You know, there's one set in India, one set in Japan, one set in what was then Palestine and is now Israel. And without being able to travel during COVID, I had to either repeat myself, which I could have done, or I could explore an area that was a little closer to home and didn't mean getting on a plane. So I talked to my editor and I said, you know that book that I talked to you about some time ago? Maybe this is the time to do that one instead. So I thought, let's do a Bay Area book. And I had always wanted to write a book set in the 60s because, I mean, really, who wouldn't, right? Anyone here remember the 60s? Yeah, none of the rest of you were there either. I had always wanted to write a 60s book, but when I started looking at the idea, because I write mysteries, I wanted to write it a cold case book, right? To make it partly now and partly then. But when I looked at the then, I realized that I'd kind of put it off too late, because it's now 2022, and anyone who did actually do things in the 60s, you know, I didn't want all my suspects to be in wheelchairs. So I thought, maybe I'll move things along to the 70s. I mean, the 70s are kind of cool too, right? So anyone remember the 70s? We all remember the 70s, right? Yeah, and actually it was really interesting because the 70s are this period that has a tension between the enthusiasm and optimism of the 60s and, and the shoulder pads, crack cocaine, and AIDS epidemic of the 80s, right? So the 70s are this period, and anything that gives tension to a crime writer is great. So I thought the 70s will do it, and my suspects will still be active enough. I mean, you know, I have a brother-in-law who's 84, and he runs regularly. I mean, he hurts himself regularly too, but he runs regularly. So I thought, you know, we can be in our 80s and still be suspects, right? So this is a two-parter, and I found it really a fascinating way of writing a story. Among other things, I set it at a place that I hadn't been to in some time. And how many of you have been to Filoli? Yeah, any of you been there since the pandemic? A few, yeah. And I thought, well, I really should go there if I'm going to set a book there. And then I thought, well, maybe I could kind of fake it and just do a sort of alternate universe Filoli. And so this is the Gardner estate in the book. If you're reading it and you have been to Filoli, you'll instantly recognize it because it's roughly that area, it's roughly the structure, it's got the garden and the rest. It's not really Filoli, but it's Filoli in a different universe, and one of those universes that puts itself onto the Gardner estate that Filoli never got was a commune. I mean, don't you think Filoli would have really benefited from a commune? This is one of the pleasures of being a writer is you could say, hey, why not? So that's the current book. Is this character who is a cold case investigator with the San Francisco Police Department, and it's a world that I had written before. I have a different series that is the Kate Martinelli series is set in San Francisco, but I didn't really want to make this a Kate book, so it's sort of a semi-Kate book with a new investigator that I've really enjoyed, and I like having the combination of the Mary Russell stories are. This is Mary Russell. For those of you who haven't met her, is a young woman who comes across Sherlock Holmes on the Sussex Downs in 1915. And becomes his apprentice and his partner and eventually his wife. Sorry if that's a spoiler, anyone, but they've been out for 30 years, so you'll have to catch up. But they're all in her voice. They're written in first person. They're historical. They're rather formal English. They deal with historical issues that also have an echo in modern times, which is a pleasure to write and to craft and to come up with. And this one is one of the contemporary ones. And I find it really nice to shift between the two. For most of my career, I've sort of alternated between historical and modern times. Partly because I find if I live with the same characters too long, I tend to hurt them. And there was one book that was the fourth in the Russell series, and I hadn't really intended to do that many, but as there were reasons for them. So when the fourth book opens and the main character awakes from a coma with a head injury and amnesia, I said to my editor, I don't think I should do a fifth in a row because she's going to lose some part of her anatomy if I do. So it's lovely to be able to shift the different books around, and I'm always pleased when readers are willing to shift along with me, and a lot of readers are not. They just like this series, and that's fine. But it's interesting, and I've been really fortunate with my publishing house in that they are willing to let me do what I want, more or less. But with all of the books that I've done, one of the, I'm always aware of the importance of storytelling. Storytelling is often sort of dismissed as less important than the craft of capital L literature. And I am proudly a storyteller. I think that the role of fiction is partly to comfort and distract. I had so many people during the last 2.5 years write to me and say, bless your books for giving me a distraction from, the list of things goes on and on, doesn't it? Because I think that we need to step out of life sometimes. But I also enjoy the way, as a storyteller, I am allowed to bring in these sort of subversive ideas that, so long as I'm not giving the impression that I'm standing on a soapbox and saying, you have to believe this, that so long as I slip in these ideas in the voices of the various characters in the book, I can do a lot of things that reverberate in judgment and in society. And I also think that there's, to some degree, as a writer, I am aware that I am providing a kind of guide. And this too is, what I said about the guides that I found with hospice, that, I have been there before. I can provide a way of seeing the world in a different way, and provide you some comfort, some distraction, and some guidance in the future. So that is my story as a crime writer, and I'm sticking to it. So thank you all so much. I hope that you continue to enjoy reading.
I want to buy her crime writing book. That is something I've always wanted to do, is write a conglomeration of some of the stories I've covered and try to make them into a mystery, not anywhere near as good as Laurie's. She is amazing and prolific. Can you believe? How many? 21 books? 31. Oh my gosh, I missed a couple. Let's give her a big hand again. Thank you, Laurie. And Laurie, you will see again, she is going to be out in the lobby, I think. We have some of her books for sale out there in case you didn't bring your own copy from home. And she will kindly autograph for us today. And this is a great way to start a wonderful Thursday. Thank you again, Laurie. You have a little bit more time. I was going to bring my envelope up here, but I forgot it. To either write your check. I was in the middle of writing mine just then and jumped up. So if you have time, you want to leave your envelope here, somebody will pick it up from you. Or if you want to take it home with you and do it and send it in, I just want to remind you that we only have 30 days to meet that challenge grant of $105,000. So that is another way we can help Pathways patients and families. And in case you didn't get enough of this today, we will have a recording, thanks to Oscar back there. It may take a few days, but we will have a recording on Pathways website soon. And I actually went back and looked the other day and looked at last year's with Ronnie Lott. So it's really kind of fun to go back when you want to see that. So look on Pathways website for a recording of this. And as always, I cannot thank you all enough for being here, for your love and caring and compassion. for all of Pathways patients, and for the wonderful people that keep it going and that come into our homes and are here for us. And I always tell you that now that I've retired, I wake up every day and I say, thank you for another day, and what can I do to help other people today? And I hope that all of you will use your gift of another day today wisely, enjoy it, and if God's willing and the creek don't rise, I will come back one more time. I want to get to the silver anniversary for me next year and the 32nd for One from the Heart. So thank you all very much. Enjoy your day.
Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you, and I'm wondering what it is I should do. It's so hard to keep the smile from my face. Losing control, yeah, I'm all over the place. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. When you started out with nothing and you're proud that you're a self-made man, and your friends, they all come crawling, slap you on the back and say, please, please. Try to make some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. And you started out with nothing, and you're proud that you're a self-made man. And your friends, they all come calling, slap you on the back and say, please, please. Yeah, I don't know why I came here tonight. I got the feeling something ain't right. I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair, and I'm wondering how I'll get down the stairs. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you. Stuck in the middle with you. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. I'm not telling you again. What you need is just a slap around to make everything stop and kill the fall when you come back down. I'm not everything you want, I'm just a tease. Maybe I'm out of touch. You could tell me what you want, I'll give it to you. Maybe you think too much, 'cause you're Hollywood, you never should. We never talk anymore. With your high heels on, you kill the sun. I'm not your friend anymore. I'm so sick and tired of everyone telling you what you want. I could never keep track magic wand, and you seem to forget everything that you said before you had it written for you. There's too much going on that you need to belong to. It's the only thing you know how to do. 'Cause you're Hollywood, another one. You made it all on your own. With your high heels on, you kill the sun. I'm not your friend anymore. Hollywood, you never should. We never talk anymore. With your high heels on, you kill the sun. I'm not your friend anymore. 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 And she spoke words that would melt in your hands. And she spoke words of wisdom. To the basement people, to the basement. Many surprises await you. In the basement people, in the basement. You heard that last time, you know we're gonna find you. Sick in the car seat 'cause you're not up to going out on the main streets, completing your mission. You heard that last time, you know we're gonna find you. Sick in the car seat 'cause you're not up to going out on the main streets, completing your mission. And she spoke words that would melt in your hands. And she spoke words of wisdom. To the basement people, to the basement. Many surprises await you. In the basement people, in the basement. You heard that last time, you know we're gonna find you. Sick in the car seat 'cause you're not up to going out on the main streets, completing your mission. You hear that last time, you know we're gonna find you. Sick in the car seat 'cause you're not up to going out on the main streets, completing your mission. You're simpatico, and of all the lived homes and all the mixed feelings, you cuts above, and you don't know worries are a chest full of heartache. Yes, I know.